do you tell when a storm is coming? The first big clue is to know your clouds. Not all clouds are storm clouds, like these here. These are a type of cloud that doesn't cause any bad weather. You've probably seen lots of these before. They're the classic clouds, the kind most people think of if you ask them to picture a cloud. These clouds kind of look like piles of fluff or cotton. In fact, that's what they're named after. Scientists call these clouds cumulus clouds, from the Latin word meaning a pile of something, like a pile of fluff. Fluffy cumulus clouds are usually spaced apart from each other somewhat, so when you see them, there's always some blue sky around them. When you look up and see a sky that looks like this is what we call a partly cloudy day. No bad weather here. Cumulus clouds are good weather clouds. So go ahead and turn to page 1 of your booklet. Write the name of this cloud at the top, and under that, write a word that will remind you what the cloud looks like. We wrote fluffy. Then, draw an example of a fluffy cumulus cloud in the box. You don't have to draw anything fancy, just draw the shape. I'll pause the video now so that you can do that. Press play when you're ready to continue. Now that you've drawn a cumulus cloud, let's look at a second kind of cloud. This kind of cloud isn't very fluffy like cotton. In fact, it's more long and flat. It's spread out. Here's another example. You see how these clouds stretch across the sky? When one of these clouds is overhead, when you're underneath one, they can block out the whole sky and look like this. The whole sky just looks whitish or light gray. You see no blue sky at all. This is what you'll hear people call an overcast sky, meaning the sky is completely covered by cloud. But just because these kind of clouds block out the sun, that doesn't mean it's going to storm. These aren't storm clouds. They're just long, flat, spread out clouds that block your view of the blue sky. These clouds are called stratus, from the Latin word for spread out. They're almost like a blanket of clouds that's come over you. So let's put them in your book. In the booklet, turn the page over to page 3. Be careful, you don't want page 2, you want page 3. Write the cloud name at the top of the page, and under that write a word that will remind you what this cloud looks like. We wrote spread out. Then draw a picture of this cloud in the box. I'll pause the video now. Just press play to continue. Okay, so now we know about fluffy cumulus clouds and spread out stratus clouds. Those are the two fair weather clouds. But what about bad weather clouds, storm clouds? Well, once you know about the fair weather clouds, you actually have started to learn something about the storm clouds. Let me explain. Remember the storm cloud from the story of William Rankin? That was called a cumulonimbus cloud. There, you see that word cumulo again, just like in the cumulus type of cloud. Remember what cumulus means. It means a pile, like a pile of fluff. Well, cumulonimbus clouds have that in common with cumulus clouds. They're both fluffy looking clouds. In fact, a cumulonimbus cloud starts out as an ordinary looking cumulus cloud. Let me show you what I mean. Here's a sped up video of some fluffy cumulus clouds. But now, watch this for a little while. Just watch what happens. I'll let you see. Oh, you see that happening? It got way taller, right? If you see a puffy white cloud that starts to look tall and towering like this one, it's become a cumulonimbus storm cloud, the kind like William Rankin fell through. The end of that word, nimbus, comes from the Latin word for storm. So cumulonimbus clouds are good clouds that have turned into bad clouds. They start as harmless cumulus clouds and they turn into stormy cumulonimbus. Here are some more photos of cumulonimbus clouds. Notice that the shape of the top can differ somewhat. They're not all exactly the same, but no matter what shape the tops are, cumulonimbus clouds are always very tall. If a cumulonimbus cloud is going to pass over your town, it can be pretty serious. From the story of William Rankin, you've already seen some of the traits of cumulonimbus storms. They produce strong winds, heavy rains, lightning, and thunder, and sometimes they even produce frozen rain or hail, which can be big enough to smash car windows. Now, luckily, even though cumulonimbus storms are really bad, they don't last a long time. Most cumulonimbus storms are less than an hour long. Okay, so let's draw one in your book. Turn to page 2, next to where you drew the cumulus cloud. What you want to do is write cumulo in front of nimbus to make cumulonimbus. Underneath, write some words that will remind you what this cloud looks like. Then, draw a picture of a cumulonimbus cloud. I'll pause now so you can do this. So now you've drawn a cumulonimbus cloud in your book. But do you remember, I mentioned there's another type of storm cloud? You see, just like cumulus clouds can go bad, becoming cumulonimbus clouds, well, stratus clouds have their own way of becoming storm clouds too. This is a normal spread out stratus cloud. There's no storm here, right? But if you see stratus clouds getting thicker and darker like this, that's a sign that it's becoming a storm cloud. The reason it's getting darker is because more and more water droplets are building up inside the cloud, which makes it harder for sunlight to shine through from the other side. Once enough water builds up inside that cloud, the water starts to fall down, and the cloud begins to rain. Here's another picture of the same type of cloud. So this type of cloud is called stratonimbus, meaning a spread out rain cloud. You see the lines of rain falling from the cloud? That's actually rain you can see there. So now you know both types of storm clouds. Notice how different they look from each other. Even though they're both storm clouds, stratonimbus clouds come from spread out stratus clouds, so they're still very long and flat, like a blanket across the sky. And cumulonimbus clouds come from cumulus clouds, so they're still very puffy, just a lot taller than an ordinary cumulus. But maybe the most important difference between these two storm clouds is how they behave. A cumulonimbus cloud is a powerful storm, but the cloud itself is tall, not wide. So that means that when one of these passes over where you live, even though the storm is bad, it doesn't last very long. If one of these storms passes over you, you definitely want to run inside to stay safe. But there's a good chance that in less than 20 minutes, the storm will pass. It might even be sunny outside again, and you'll be able to go back to life as usual. Stratonimbus clouds are the opposite. The clouds are like wide blankets across the sky, so that means that the rain might last all day long. These aren't very powerful storms like a cumulonimbus. There's no lightning, there's no hail, it just rains. You'll be stuck inside most of the day if one of these passes overhead. Now that you understand both storm clouds, let's add stratonimbus to your book. Turn to page 4, next to where you drew the stratus clouds. Write strato in front of nimbus to make stratonimbus, and underneath, write some words that will remind you what this cloud looks like. Then draw a picture of the stratonimbus clouds, and also be sure to shade it in dark to remind yourself that these clouds turn dark gray. This video will end now. Go to the next video when you're ready to move on.